The knock on Marcus Hale's door at 11:30 on a Tuesday night wasn't a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. It was his boss, the youngest, most ruthless CEO in the city, standing in the hallway of his rundown apartment building with an expression that could freeze hell itself. She didn't ask to come in. She didn't apologize for the hour. She just looked him dead in the eye and said two words that would shatter everything he'd been desperately holding together. "You're fired." But what happened next wasn't what Marcus expected. It was something far more terrifying and far more honest. If you want to see how one brutal confrontation changed everything, stay with me until the end. And hey, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's get into it. Marcus Hale hadn't slept a full night in 8 months. Not since the funeral. Not since the morning he woke up and realized his wife wasn't coming back, and that he was now the only thing standing between his 6-year-old daughter and a world that didn't care whether children had breakfast or clean clothes or someone to read them bedtime stories. So he stopped sleeping. He worked instead. Marcus was 30 years old, black, exhausted down to his bones, and absolutely convinced that if he slowed down for even a second, everything he'd built would collapse. His job as a mid-level operations analyst at Carter Industries paid the bills, barely, and kept Ava in her school, in her neighborhood, in the only stable thing she had left after losing her mother. Every morning, Marcus woke at 5. He made Ava's lunch, ironed her school uniform, braided her hair while she ate cereal and watched cartoons. He walked her to the bus stop, kissed her forehead, reminded her he loved her, then sprinted to the subway to make it to the office by 7:30. He worked through lunch, stayed late, brought files home, answered emails at midnight while Ava slept in the next room. His coworkers noticed. "Man, you look like hell," his cubicle neighbor Derek said one afternoon, sliding a cup of coffee onto Marcus's desk. "When's the last time you took a day off?" Marcus didn't look up from his spreadsheet. "I'm good." "You're not good. You look like you're about to pass out." "I said I'm good." Derek backed off. Everyone did. Because Marcus had perfected the art of the polite shutdown, the smile that didn't reach his eyes, the reassurance that everything was fine, the wall that kept people from getting close enough to see the cracks. But the cracks were there. They showed up in the unwashed dishes piled in his sink, in the laundry basket overflowing in the corner of his bedroom, in the bills he paid late because he forgot to open the envelopes, in the weight he'd lost because he kept forgetting to eat. Ava noticed too, even though she was only 6. "Daddy, you didn't eat your sandwich again," she said one night, pointing at the plate Marcus had set on the coffee table, and then ignored for 2 hours while he worked on his laptop. "I will, baby, I promise." "You always say that." Marcus looked at his daughter, her big brown eyes, her hair in the lopsided ponytail he had attempted that morning, her frozen pajamas that were getting too small, and felt something twist in his chest. "I'm sorry, Ava. Daddy's just busy." "You're always busy." She wasn't accusing him. She was just stating a fact, and somehow that made it worse. Marcus closed his laptop. He picked up the sandwich. He took a bite even though his stomach was churning with exhaustion and stress and the constant low-grade panic that had become his baseline. "Better?" he asked. Ava smiled. "Better." But it wasn't better. Marcus knew it wasn't better. He was drowning, and the worst part was that he'd gotten so good at pretending he was fine that no one seemed to notice. Except one person. Naomi Carter became CEO of Carter Industries when she was 28 years old. Not because her father handed her the company, though he had founded it, but because she'd spent 5 years systematically proving she was the only person capable of saving it from collapse. She'd restructured entire departments, renegotiated contracts that were bleeding the company dry, and fired 3 senior executives who thought their tenure made them untouchable. She was brilliant. She was ruthless. And she didn't tolerate weakness. At least, that's what people said. The truth was more complicated. Naomi didn't tolerate waste. She didn't tolerate inefficiency, incompetence, or people who coasted on excuses. But weakness? Actual human limitation? She understood that better than most people realized. She just didn't broadcast it. Naomi had a routine. Every quarter, she reviewed performance data for every department in the company. Not just the executives, everyone. She wanted to know who was contributing, who was stagnating, and who was silently falling apart. That's how she noticed Marcus Hale. His productivity metrics were erratic. Some weeks he was operating at 140% efficiency. Other weeks he missed deadlines, submitted work with errors, showed up late to meetings looking like he hadn't slept. Naomi pulled his file. 30 years old, widowed 8 months ago, single father, no family support listed in his emergency contacts, no PTO taken since his wife's death. She frowned. Then she did something she almost never did. She asked HR for more context. Marcus Hale, she said to Janet, the HR director, during their weekly check-in. What's his story? Janet hesitated. He's struggling, obviously, but he hasn't asked for help. He hasn't filed for bereavement leave extension or requested flex time or why not? I don't know. Pride, maybe? Fear of looking weak? A lot of people think asking for accommodations will hurt their career. Naomi's jaw tightened. That's ridiculous. I agree, but it's what they believe. Naomi made a note. Then she made a decision. The next 3 weeks, Naomi watched Marcus. Not obviously. She wasn't hovering over his desk or interrogating his coworkers. But she paid attention during the all-hands meetings when Marcus sat in the back row with his arms crossed and his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. She noticed when he stayed late every single night, long after everyone else had gone home. She saw the way he flinched when his phone buzzed, probably his daughter's school or the babysitter or some other crisis demanding his immediate attention. And she saw the moment it all started to break. It was a Thursday afternoon. Marcus was presenting a quarterly operations report to the leadership team, a routine presentation he'd done a dozen times before. Except this time, halfway through his second slide, he froze. Just stopped talking. The room went silent. 10 executives stared at him, waiting. Marcus blinked. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Marcus? Someone prompted. He shook his head like he was trying to clear it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. He fumbled with his notes, found his place, kept going. But Naomi saw his hands shaking. After the meeting, she pulled him aside. Marcus, a word. He turned, startled. Miss Carter, yes, of course. Naomi gestured toward her office. Marcus followed, his expression carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. She closed the door behind them. Sit. Marcus sat. Naomi leaned against her desk, arms crossed. How long has it been since you took a day off? He blinked. What? A day off. A full day where you didn't work, didn't check email, didn't think about this company. I don't really need... That wasn't the question. Marcus's jaw tightened. 8 months. Since your wife died. He flinched. Yes. Naomi nodded slowly. And how long has it been since you slept more than 4 hours a night? Miss Carter, I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. I'm managing. You're not managing. You're barely functioning. Marcus stood abruptly. With all due respect, my personal life isn't... Your personal life is affecting your work, Naomi interrupted, her voice calm but firm. Which makes it my business. You froze in a meeting today, Marcus. You've missed 3 deadlines in the last month. Your error rate has tripled. I'll do better. You can't do better. You're already doing everything you possibly can. That's the problem. Marcus stared at her, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. What do you want me to say? I want you to admit that you're drowning. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus looked away. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when you're a single parent, Marcus said, his voice rough. Not when you've got a 6-year-old who just lost her mother and you're the only thing keeping her world from falling apart. I don't get to fall apart. I don't get to take days off or sleep in or ask for help. Because if I do, if I let go for even a second, everything collapses. Naomi was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, What time does your daughter go to bed? Marcus frowned. What? What time does Ava go to bed? 8:30? Why? Naomi checked her watch. It was 6 p.m. Go home. Spend the evening with her. I'll see you tomorrow. Marcus shook his head. I have reports to finish. They can wait. Ms. Carter. That's not a suggestion, Marcus. Go home. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his eyes, but he was too tired to fight. So he left, and Naomi sat at her desk, thinking. Jichin. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in watching someone self-destruct in slow motion. Marcus worked harder than ever, as if trying to prove he didn't need help. He stayed later, skipped more meals, showed up with darker circles under his eyes and a tremor in his hands that he tried to hide by keeping them busy. Naomi tried subtle interventions first. She reassigned some of his projects to other team members, citing workload balancing. Marcus picked up extra work to compensate. She sent HR to offer him flex time and remote work options. Marcus politely declined. She had his manager suggest he use some of his accumulated PTO. Marcus said he'd think about it, then didn't. It was like watching someone hold their breath underwater, refusing to come up for air because they'd convinced themselves that surfacing meant drowning. Finally, Naomi made a decision. It was a Tuesday night, late, nearly midnight. She drove across town to the address listed in Marcus's employee file, a modest apartment building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. She climbed 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken, and she knocked on Marcus Hale's door. Thus, Marcus was in Ava's room when he heard the knock. He'd just finished reading her The Paper Bag Princess for the 3rd time that week, her current favorite, and was tucking her stuffed elephant under her arm when the sound echoed through the small apartment. Loud, insistent, not the tentative tap of a neighbor asking to borrow something. Marcus frowned. Who the hell was knocking on his door at 11:30 at night? "Stay here, baby," he whispered to Ava. "Is someone here?" she mumbled, half asleep. "I'll check, just stay in bed." He crossed the small living room, past the pile of unfolded laundry on the couch, the stack of bills on the coffee table, the laptop still open with work files glowing on the screen, and looked through the peephole. His stomach dropped. Naomi Carter stood in the hallway, wearing jeans and a simple black coat, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Marcus considered not answering, considered pretending he wasn't home, because whatever brought his CEO to his apartment at this hour couldn't be good. But ignoring her wasn't an option. He unlocked the door, opened it. "Ms. Carter," his voice was carefully neutral. "Is everything okay? Did something happen at the office?" "You're fired." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. Marcus stared at her. "What?" "You're fired," Naomi repeated, her voice calm and even. "Effective immediately." His mind went blank. Then it raced. Then it spiraled. Fired. He was fired. He'd lost his job. The job that paid for this apartment, for Ava's school, for everything. The job he'd sacrificed, sleep and health and sanity to keep. I don't understand, he managed. "If this is about my performance, I can do better. I'll fix the errors. Can I come in?" Marcus blinked. "What? Can I come in?" Naomi repeated. "Naomi, or would you prefer to have this conversation in the hallway?" He stepped back automatically, too shocked to do anything else. Naomi walked into his apartment. She looked around, at the clutter, the exhaustion made visible, the life barely held together with duct tape and willpower. She turned to face him. "Close the door, Marcus." He did. Naomi gestured toward the couch. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you just fired me." "Because you're killing yourself." The bluntness of it stunned him into silence. Naomi's expression softened slightly. "You're not fired because you're bad at your job, Marcus. You're one of the smartest analysts I have. Your strategic thinking is exceptional when you're actually functioning, but you're not functioning. You're running on fumes and stubbornness, and it's destroying you." "So you're firing me?" His voice cracked. "That's your solution?" "I'm removing you from a situation that's killing you," Naomi said quietly. "There's a difference." Marcus shook his head. "Can't afford to lose this job. I have a daughter. I have rent, bills, her school. I know." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Naomi reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him. Marcus unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a new employment contract. His eyes scanned the page. Same title, same salary. But the job description was completely different. Reduced hours, flexible schedule, remote work options, and a focus on strategic consulting rather than day-to-day operations. He looked up at her, confused. "I don't understand." You're not fired from the company, Naomi said. You're fired from the job that's destroying you. This is your new role, 25 hours a week instead of 60. Core hours from 9 to 2, the rest flexible. You'll focus on high-level strategy and analysis, the things you're actually good at, and we'll redistribute the administrative work to other team members. Marcus stared at the contract. Why would you do this? Because I'd rather restructure one position than lose a valuable employee to burnout, or worse. But the salary, you're paying me the same amount for less work. I'm paying you for the value you provide, not the hours you log, Naomi corrected. And frankly, you'll provide more value working 25 focused hours than 60 exhausted ones. Marcus sat down on the couch, still holding the contract. I don't know what to say. You could start with the truth, Naomi said. She sat down in the chair across from him. When's the last time you let yourself breathe? He looked at her. This woman who'd shown up at his door at midnight, who'd just upended his entire world in a way he still didn't fully understand, and something inside him cracked. I can't breathe, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. If I stop, if I slow down for even a second, I'll fall apart. And if I fall apart, Ava loses everything. She already lost her mother. She can't lose me too. She's already losing you, Naomi said gently. Not to death, to exhaustion, to the version of yourself that's so busy surviving that you've forgotten how to live. Tears burned behind Marcus's eyes. He blinked them back. I don't know how to do this differently. Then learn. Marcus looked at the contract again, at the impossible gift he'd just been handed. Time, space, permission to be human. Why are you doing this? He asked again. Naomi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because 5 years ago I watched my father work himself to death, literally. He had a heart attack at his desk because he refused to slow down, refused to delegate, refused to admit he couldn't do everything alone. And I swore that if I ever had the power to stop someone else from making that same mistake, I would. She stood, walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. Sign the contract or don't, Marcus. That's your choice. But if you sign it, you have to actually use it. No working off the clock. No staying late because you feel guilty. No proving you can still do everything alone. Because that's not strength. That's just slow suicide. She opened the door. I'll see you Monday, 9 a.m., not a minute earlier. And then she was gone. Marcus sat in his cluttered apartment, holding a contract that shouldn't exist, feeling like the ground had just shifted beneath his feet. From Ava's room, he heard a small voice. Daddy? Who was that? He stood, walked to her doorway. His daughter was sitting up in bed, her elephant clutched to her chest. Just someone from work, baby. Are you okay? You look sad. Marcus crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed. He pulled Ava into his arms and held her tight. I'm okay, he said. And for the first time in 8 months, he thought it might actually be true. Eventually. I'm going to be okay. Promise? He kissed the top of her head. Promise. That night, after Ava fell back asleep, Marcus sat at his kitchen table and read the contract again. And again. And again. Then he signed it. Not because he believed he deserved it. Not because he fully understood why Naomi Carter had shown up at his door and offered him a lifeline instead of a pink slip. But because somewhere deep down, beneath the exhaustion and fear and crushing responsibility, a tiny voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to destroy himself to be enough. Maybe surviving wasn't the same as living, and maybe it was time to learn the difference. Monday morning, Marcus showed up at Carter Industries at exactly 9 a.m. Not 7:30, not 6. 9. It felt wrong, like showing up late even though he wasn't. He walked through the office, hyper-aware of the fact that half his coworkers were already at their desks, already deep in work, already proving their worth. And he was just arriving. Derek looked up as Marcus passed. Yo, you good? You're never here this late. New schedule, Marcus said, trying to sound casual. Oh, cool. It didn't feel cool. It felt like everyone was silently judging him for not being the first one in anymore. But when he got to his desk, there was a note waiting for him. Welcome to your new role, my office. 9:15. NC Marcus checked the time, 9:03. He had 12 minutes. He spent them trying to calm the anxiety crawling up his spine. At 9:15 exactly, he knocked on Naomi Carter's office door. "Come in." He stepped inside. Naomi was at her desk, reviewing something on her computer. She glanced up. "Close the door. Sit." Marcus did. Naomi closed her laptop and gave him her full attention. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, guilty." "For what?" "For showing up at 9 when everyone else has been here for an hour and a half." Naomi's expression didn't change. "Everyone else doesn't have your circumstances, and everyone else isn't doing strategic analysis that requires a clear mind. You're not here to clock hours, Marcus. You're here to think. Can you think clearly when you're running on 4 hours of sleep and skipped meals? No. Then showing up rested is doing your job better, not worse." It made logical sense, but logic didn't erase the feeling that he was somehow cheating. "This is going to take some getting used to," Marcus admitted. "I know. That's why we're having this conversation." Naomi opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "Here's your new project roster. 3 strategic initiatives you'll be consulting on. I need analysis, recommendations, and projected outcomes. No administrative work, no busy work, just the high-level thinking you're good at." She slid the folder across the desk. Marcus opened it. The projects were significant: major operational improvements, market expansion strategies, efficiency optimization, real work, important work. "You trust me with this?" "I wouldn't have restructured your position if I didn't." Marcus looked up at her. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "How many other people in this company have arrangements like mine?" Naomi leaned back in her chair. "Define D like yours. Reduced hours at full salary, flexible schedules." "Currently, 4. But I'm working on expanding it. The data shows that people who work reasonable hours with actual work-life balance are more productive, more creative, and less likely to burn out. It's better for them and better for the company." "Then why doesn't everyone do it?" "Because most executives measure value by time spent at a desk instead of results produced. They think if someone's not visibly suffering, they're not working hard enough." Naomi's expression hardened slightly. "It's a stupid, outdated way to run a company, and it kills people." Marcus thought about her father, about the heart attack at his desk. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "About your dad." Naomi's expression softened. "Thank you, but his death doesn't help anyone unless I learn from it." She straightened. "Which is why I'm telling you this. Your job is to show up, do excellent work during your scheduled hours, and then go home and be a father. That's it. If you start working off the clock, if you start staying late, if you start sacrificing your health again, I will notice, and I will intervene. Are we clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Now get to work. You've got 3 hours before you need to pick up your daughter from school." Marcus blinked. "How did you—" "I read your file, Marcus. I know her school gets out at noon on Mondays." He felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Gratitude, relief, the dizzy sensation of being seen, actually seen, by someone who had the power to help. "Thank you," he said. "For all of this." Naomi nodded once. "Don't thank me, just use it." Marcus left her office carrying the folder of projects and a feeling he hadn't experienced in 8 months. Hope. The first week of Marcus's new schedule felt like learning to walk again after years of running. He arrived at 9, left at 2:30, picked Ava up from school himself for the first time in months instead of relying on the after-school program that kept her until 6. The guilt was crushing. Every morning when he walked into the office and saw his coworkers already deep in work, coffee cups half empty, he felt like a fraud. Every afternoon when he packed up his laptop while others were just hitting their stride, he felt like he was abandoning ship. But the strangest part wasn't the guilt. It was the silence. For 8 months, Marcus's life had been pure noise, constant movement, endless tasks, the relentless pressure of doing everything at once. Now, suddenly, there was space. Quiet. Time to think. And he had no idea what to do with it. On Wednesday afternoon, he picked Ava up from school and brought her home. They had 3 whole hours before dinner. 3 hours that used to be filled with her sitting alone in the after-school room doing homework while he worked late. Ava dropped her backpack by the door and looked up at him expectantly. "What do you want to do, baby?" Marcus asked. She blinked. "What do you mean?" We have time. We could go to the park, or bake something, or just hang out. What sounds good? Ava stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. You don't have to work? The question hit him harder than it should have. Not right now, he said quietly. Right now I'm just with you. Her face lit up in a way that made his chest ache. Can we go to the park? The one with the good swings? Yeah, baby, we can do that. They went to the park. Ava ran straight for the swings, her backpack forgotten on the bench beside Marcus. He pushed her, higher and higher, until she was shrieking with laughter and demanding he push her to the sky. And for the first time in 8 months, Marcus wasn't thinking about work, wasn't mentally composing emails or reviewing spreadsheets or worrying about tomorrow's deadlines. He was just there, present, watching his daughter fly. When they got home, Ava wanted to make cookies. Marcus almost said no. His instinct was to redirect her to something easier, faster, less messy. But then he remembered Naomi's words. Your job is to show up, do excellent work during your scheduled hours, and then go home and be a father. So they made cookies. Ava spilled flour everywhere. Marcus let her crack the eggs, even though half the shell ended up in the bowl. They ate raw cookie dough straight from the spoon and didn't care about salmonella warnings. And when the cookies came out of the oven, slightly burnt on the edges, perfectly imperfect, Ava hugged him tight and said, "But this is the best day ever." Marcus held her close and thought about all the days he'd missed. All the afternoons she'd spent alone while he convinced himself that working late was the same as providing for her. He'd been so wrong. That night, after Ava went to bed, Marcus sat on his couch and did something he hadn't done in months. Nothing. He didn't open his laptop, didn't check his email, didn't review files or prep for tomorrow's meetings. He just sat there, in the quiet of his apartment, and let himself breathe. It felt terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The next morning, Marcus woke up and realized something shocking. He'd slept 7 hours. 7 full, uninterrupted hours. He couldn't remember the last time that had happened. At work, Derek noticed immediately. Dude, you look different, he said, leaning over the cubicle wall. Did you get a haircut or something? Marcus touched his head self-consciously. No? Huh. Well, you look less like a zombie, so that's good. It was a backhanded compliment, but Marcus took it. The morning flew by. Marcus worked on his strategic analysis projects, and without the fog of exhaustion clouding his brain, the work came easier. Ideas flowed. Connections appeared that he'd been too tired to see before. At noon, he presented his preliminary findings on the market expansion project to Naomi and 2 other executives. This is excellent work, Naomi said, reviewing his projections. You've identified risks I hadn't even considered. One of the other executives, a man named Richard who'd been with the company for 15 years, nodded slowly. I have to say, Marcus, this is some of the sharpest analysis I've seen in a while. Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it. Marcus glanced at Naomi. She gave him the smallest hint of a smile. Thank you, Marcus said. I'll have the full report ready by next week. After the meeting, as the other executives filed out, Naomi stopped him. See, she said quietly, this is what you're capable of when you're not running on empty. Marcus nodded. I'm starting to understand that. Good. Now go pick up your daughter. He did. And as he drove to Ava's school, windows down, afternoon sun warming his face, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. By the end of the second week, the guilt started to ease. Not completely. Marcus wasn't sure it would ever disappear entirely, but enough that he could breathe without feeling like he was constantly apologizing for existing. His coworkers stopped commenting on his hours. His work was speaking for itself. And slowly, carefully, Marcus started rebuilding his life into something that felt sustainable. He established a routine. Morning breakfast with Ava. Real breakfast, not cereal eaten standing up while rushing out the door. Work from 9 to 2:30. Pick up Ava from school, homework time, dinner together, bedtime stories. And then, instead of collapsing into exhausted sleep or forcing himself to work late, Marcus had actual evening hours to himself. At first, he didn't know what to do with them. He tried watching TV. It felt weird. He tried reading. Couldn't focus. He tried going to bed early. Lay awake feeling guilty. Finally, on a Thursday night, 3 weeks into his new schedule, Marcus did something completely unexpected. He called his sister. Vanessa lived in Atlanta, had for 10 years. They talked maybe once every few months, usually brief check-ins that never went deeper than surface-level pleasantries. But tonight, sitting in his quiet apartment while Ava slept, Marcus dialed her number. She answered on the third ring. Marcus? Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to talk. There was a pause. Talk? About what? I don't know, life. How are you? Another pause, then Vanessa laughed, but it sounded uncertain. Are you sure you're okay? You never just called a chat. Marcus winced. I know, I'm sorry, I've been drowning, Vanessa finished gently. I know, I've been worried about you. You have? Of course I have. You're my brother, and after Simone died, you just shut down, shut everyone out. I tried calling, tried visiting, but you kept saying you were fine and you had everything under control. Marcus leaned back against the couch. I didn't have everything under control. I know. I was barely surviving. I know that too. Then why didn't you say something? Vanessa sighed. Because you weren't ready to hear it, and I didn't know how to help when you wouldn't let anyone get close. They talked for an hour. About Simone, about grief, about Ava, about the impossible weight of single parenthood. Vanessa told him about her own struggles. A recent breakup, job stress, the loneliness of living far from family. And Marcus realized something. He'd been so convinced he had to carry everything alone that he'd forgotten other people were struggling too. That maybe, just maybe, letting people in wasn't weakness. It was connection. I'm coming to visit next month, Vanessa said as they were wrapping up. I want to see Ava, and you. I want to actually see you, not the robot version who's too tired to be human. Marcus smiled. I'd like that. Good. And Marcus? Yeah? I'm proud of you. For whatever you're doing differently, for whatever changed, I'm proud of you. After they hung up, Marcus sat in the dark for a long time, feeling something loosen in his chest. He wasn't alone. He'd been acting like he was, but he wasn't. The realization was terrifying and comforting in equal measure. Monday morning of week 4, Marcus arrived at the office to find an email from Naomi waiting in his inbox. Marcus, I'm adding you to the Operational Efficiency Task Force. First meeting is Wednesday at 10 a.m. This is a high-visibility project reporting directly to the executive board. Your strategic insights will be valuable. NC Marcus read the email twice, then walked straight to Naomi's office. She looked up when he knocked. Come in. The task force, Marcus said without preamble. Are you sure? That's a big deal. I know what it is. It's going to require additional time, meetings, presentations, which you'll handle during your scheduled hours, Naomi interrupted calmly. I'm not asking you to work more, Marcus. I'm asking you to contribute your expertise to an important project. Can you do that? He hesitated. The old Marcus would have immediately said yes while panicking internally about how to fit it into an already impossible schedule. The new Marcus had to actually think about it. What's the time commitment, he asked. 2 hours per week in meetings. Maybe 3 hours of analysis and prep work. That's 5 hours, which fits easily into your 25-hour schedule if you manage your time well. Marcus did the math. She was right. It did fit. But it meant less margin for error, less buffer time. Then again, maybe that was the point. Maybe learning to manage a sustainable workload meant actually using the hours he had efficiently instead of just drowning in unlimited hours. Okay, he said. I'll do it. Naomi smiled. Good. You'll be working closely with Elena Rivera from the Healthcare Analytics Division. She's sharp. You'll like her. Marcus nodded and left, feeling the familiar flutter of anxiety mixed with something new. Excitement. He was being trusted with important work, real work, not because he was killing himself to prove his worth, but because someone believed in his abilities. It felt strange and good. Wednesday's task force meeting was held in the large conference room on the executive floor. Marcus arrived 5 minutes early, clutching his laptop and trying to look like he belonged. There were 6 other people in the room, all senior analysts or department heads. He recognized most of them, but had never worked directly with any. And then a woman walked in who he didn't recognize at all. She was around his age, Latina, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. She carried herself with the kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly how good she was at her job. She sat down across from Marcus and smiled. "You must be Marcus Hale. I'm Elena Rivera." He shook her hand. "Nice to meet you." "Likewise. I've heard good things about your strategic analysis work. Naomi speaks highly of you." Marcus blinked. "She does?" Elena's smile widened. "Don't sound so surprised. You're on this task force for a reason." The meeting started before Marcus could respond. The project was ambitious, a complete overhaul of the company's operational workflows to reduce inefficiency and improve employee satisfaction. It would affect every department. Marcus listened as the task force leader outlined the scope. Then they went around the table, each person sharing their initial thoughts. When it was Marcus's turn, he took a breath and said, "I think we need to start by actually talking to employees, not just surveying them, but really listening. Because the inefficiencies we see on paper don't tell the whole story of why people are burning out." The room went quiet. Then Elena spoke up. "I agree. We implemented a similar listening session approach in healthcare analytics last year, and the insights we gained completely changed our recommendations." Another analyst nodded. "That makes sense, but it's time-intensive." "Everything worthwhile is time-intensive," Elena countered. "The question is whether we want surface-level improvements or actual transformation." Marcus found himself nodding. "Exactly." The task force leader made a note. "Okay, Marcus, Elena, you two partner on designing the employee listening strategy. Bring recommendations to our next meeting." After the meeting ended, Elena caught up with Marcus in the hallway. "Hey, want to grab coffee and brainstorm?" she asked. "There's a good place downstairs." Marcus checked his watch. 11:30. He had 3 hours before he needed to leave. "Sure," he said. They found a table in the corner of the building's cafe. Elena ordered an espresso. Marcus got regular coffee, black. "So," Elena said, pulling out her laptop, "listening sessions, how do we structure them so people actually feel safe being honest?" They spent the next hour building a framework. Elena was sharp, like Naomi had said. She thought 3 steps ahead, anticipated problems, asked questions that made Marcus reconsider his assumptions. But more than that, she was easy to talk to. The conversation flowed naturally, bouncing between work topics and occasional personal tangents. "You have a daughter, right?" Elena asked at one point. "I think Naomi mentioned it." Marcus nodded. "Ava, she's 6. "I have a daughter too. Sophia, she's 7. "Oh yeah? What's she like?" Elena's entire face softened. "She's incredible. Smart, funny, stubborn as hell. Reminds me way too much of myself at that age." She paused. "It's just the 2 of us. Her dad's not in the picture." Marcus understood the weight behind those words. "Same here. Ava's mom passed away last year." Elena's expression shifted to immediate sympathy. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. "It's been hard, figuring out how to do this alone." "Tell me about it. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water." "But you seem so put together," Elena laughed. "That's what everyone thinks. Behind the scenes, it's organized chaos. I'm just really good at looking like I have my life under control." Marcus smiled. "I used to try to do that. Almost killed me." "What changed?" He thought about Naomi showing up at his door, about the contract, about the choice he'd made to stop drowning. "Someone forced me to admit I couldn't do everything alone," he said quietly, "and then gave me permission to actually live instead of just survive." Elena studied him for a moment. "That's a gift. Not everyone gets that." "I know." They talked for another 20 minutes, then exchanged phone numbers to coordinate on the listening sessions project. As Marcus walked back to his desk, he realized something. He'd just made a friend. Not a coworker he was polite to, not someone he smiled at in meetings. An actual friend. Someone he genuinely enjoyed talking to. Someone he wanted to keep talking to. When was the last time that had happened? He couldn't remember. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Elena met regularly to work on the task force project. They conducted preliminary interviews with employees from different departments, compiled data, identified patterns. But they also talked about other things, their daughters, their struggles with single parenthood, the impossible balance of work and life. Marcus learned that Elena was a nurse before transitioning into healthcare analytics. that she loved terrible reality TV shows, that her daughter Sophia wanted to be an astronaut. Elena learned that Marcus missed cooking, that he'd been a decent piano player before life got too busy, that Ava was obsessed with dinosaurs. One Friday afternoon, after they'd finished reviewing interview transcripts, Elena closed her laptop and said, "Hey, random question. Do you and Ava have plans tomorrow?" Marcus thought about it. "Nothing major." "Why?" "Sophia's been asking to have a friend over, but most of her school friends are busy. I thought maybe she and Ava might get along. We could take them to that children's museum downtown. Make it a group thing so it's less awkward." Marcus's first instinct was to say no, to keep his personal life separate from work, to maintain boundaries. But then he thought about Ava, who spent most weekends with just him, who'd lost so many of her social connections when Marcus had withdrawn from the world after Simone's death. "Yeah," he said. "That sounds good." Elena smiled. "Great. I'll text you the details." Saturday morning, Marcus and Ava met Elena and Sophia at the Children's Museum entrance. Ava was nervous at first, hiding behind Marcus's leg while Sophia bounced excitedly next to her mom. "Hi," Sophia said brightly. "I'm Sophia. Do you like dinosaurs? My mom said you like dinosaurs." Ava peeked out. "I love dinosaurs." "Me too. Want to go see the T-Rex?" And just like that, the two girls were off, running toward the exhibits while Marcus and Elena followed at a more reasonable pace. "Well, that was easy," Elena said, laughing. "Apparently dinosaurs are the universal language." They spent 3 hours at the museum. The girls explored every exhibit, built structures in the engineering zone, watched a planetarium show. Marcus and Elena trailed behind, occasionally helping with an activity, but mostly just talking. It felt normal, easy, like something Marcus had forgotten how to do. Afterward, they got pizza. The girls sat at one end of the table, giggling and trading dinosaur facts. Marcus and Elena sat at the other end. "This was really nice," Marcus said. "Thank you for suggesting it." "Thank you for coming. Sophia's been talking about making a new friend for weeks. I think Ava might be her new favorite person." Marcus watched the two girls. Ava was smiling wider than he'd seen in months. "Can we do this again sometime?" he asked. Elena met his eyes. "I'd like that." Something passed between them. Not romance exactly, but the recognition of two people who understood each other's battles, who were navigating the same impossible terrain of loss and responsibility, and the desperate hope that life could be more than just survival. "Me too," Marcus said. That night, as he tucked Ava into bed, she hugged him extra tight. "I really like Sophia," she said. "I'm glad, baby." "Can she be my friend?" "Yeah, I think she already is." Ava smiled sleepily. "Today was fun. We should do fun things more." Marcus kissed her forehead. "We will. I promise." And as he turned out the light and closed her door, Marcus realized something profound. He was keeping his promises now. Not the impossible ones. The promises to be perfect, to never fail, to single-handedly hold the world together. But the real ones. The ones that mattered. The promise to be present, to show up, to let his daughter have a childhood instead of just existence. For the first time since Simone died, Marcus felt like he was actually living. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at work to find Derek waiting by his desk. "Hey man, can I ask you something?" "Sure. What's up?" Derek glanced around, then lowered his voice. "How'd you get Naomi to give you the flexible schedule thing?" Marcus blinked. "What?" "The reduced hours, the leaving early. How'd you negotiate that?" "I didn't negotiate it. She offered." Derek frowned. "Just offered? Out of nowhere?" "Not exactly. I was burning out pretty badly. She restructured my role." "Huh." Derek was quiet for a moment. "You think she'd do that for other people?" "I think if you need it, you should ask." "But what if she says no? What if it makes me look weak?" Marcus thought about that night in his apartment when Naomi had called him out for killing himself, about the choice she'd given him. "It's not weak to admit you're human," he said quietly. "It's honest. And honestly, I think she respects that more than pretending you're fine when you're not." Derek nodded slowly. "Thanks, man. I'll think about it." As he walked away, Marcus felt something shift. Maybe his story could help other people. Maybe Naomi's intervention wasn't just about saving one employee. It was about changing the culture of how they all worked. That afternoon, in his final hour before leaving, Marcus finished his analysis report for the task force. He saved it, sent it to Elena for review, then packed up his laptop. As he walked toward the elevator, he passed Naomi's office. The door was open. She looked up. Heading out? Yeah, Ava has a school thing tonight. Good, have fun. Marcus paused. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. How many people have asked about flexible arrangements since you changed mine? Naomi's lips curved into a small smile. 7. What'd you tell them? I told them to bring me proposals. Show me what they need and how they'll deliver value within those parameters. 3 of them followed through. All 3 got approved. Marcus felt something warm in his chest. You're changing things. We're changing things, Naomi corrected. You're proving it works. That matters. Thank you for everything. She nodded once. Go be with your daughter. Marcus did. And as he drove to Ava's school, windows down, music playing, he thought about the man he'd been 2 months ago, exhausted, desperate, convinced he had to destroy himself to survive. That man was gone. In his place was someone learning to breathe, learning to live, learning that strength wasn't about carrying everything alone, it was about knowing when to accept help. And for the first time in a very long time, Marcus looked toward the future and felt something other than dread. He felt hope. Hope, Marcus was learning, wasn't a straight line. It curved and dipped and sometimes disappeared entirely before coming back stronger. 3 months into his new schedule, he hit his first real test. It started on a Wednesday morning when his phone rang at 6:15. Marcus was making breakfast, Ava was still asleep, and the caller ID showed Ava's school. His stomach dropped. Mr. Hale, this is Principal Morrison. I'm calling because Ava's teacher mentioned some concerns we'd like to discuss. Would you be able to come in for a meeting this afternoon? Marcus's mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. Is she okay? Did something happen? She's fine physically. This is more about some behavioral observations. Can you make 2 o'clock work? Marcus thought about his schedule. He had the task force meeting at 10, a deadline for the efficiency analysis at noon, and he was supposed to review Elena's latest research findings before end of day. The old Marcus would have panicked, would have tried to cram everything into impossible timeframes while also fitting in the school meeting. The new Marcus took a breath. Yes, he said. I'll be there. He rearranged his morning, moved 2 items to tomorrow's schedule, and sent Elena a quick message explaining he'd need to review her research Thursday morning instead. She responded immediately with a thumbs up and, hope everything's okay. At 2 o'clock, Marcus sat in Principal Morrison's office while Ava's teacher, Mrs. Chen, explained her concerns. Ava's academically right on track, Mrs. Chen said gently, but socially, she's been withdrawing. She doesn't participate in group activities the way she used to. During recess, she sits alone. When the other children invite her to play, she says no. Marcus felt his chest tighten. How long has this been going on? We started noticing it about 6 weeks ago. At first we thought it was just a phase, but it's becoming a pattern. 6 weeks ago. Right around the time Marcus's life had started stabilizing. Has she said anything about why? Marcus asked. We've tried talking to her, but she just says she's fine. She's not acting out or being disruptive. She's just very quiet. We wanted to bring it to your attention. Marcus nodded slowly, his mind racing. He'd been so focused on fixing his own life that he'd missed the signs that Ava was struggling with her own grief. Thank you for telling me, he said. I'll talk to her. That afternoon, instead of going straight home, Marcus took Ava to the park, the one with the good swings. They sat on the bench together, sharing an ice cream cone even though it was barely 60 degrees outside. Your teacher called me today, Marcus said carefully. Ava didn't look at him. Am I in trouble? No, baby, you're not in trouble, but she said you've been sitting alone at recess, that you don't want to play with the other kids. Ava was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, in a very small voice, I don't want to. Can you tell me why? She kicked her feet against the bench. Because they have moms! The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Oh, Ava! Sophia has a mom, Ava continued, her voice getting smaller. And all the kids at school have moms. And I had a mom, but she died, and now I don't, and everyone else does. Marcus pulled his daughter into his arms. She didn't cry. She'd stopped crying about Simone months ago, which had worried him more than the tears ever had. But she held on to him tight. "I know it's not fair," Marcus said quietly. "I know it hurts. Do you miss her?" "Every single day." "Me too." Ava pulled back slightly, looking up at him with eyes too old for 6 years. "But I don't want to talk about it with the other kids because then they ask questions and I don't know what to say." Marcus understood the weight of other people's sympathy, their awkward condolences, their well-meaning questions that had no good answers. "What if we found someone you could talk to?" he suggested. "Someone who helps kids figure out big feelings. Like a feelings doctor? Sort of. A counselor. Someone who's really good at listening." Ava considered this. "Would you come too?" "If you want me to." She nodded. "Okay." That night, after Ava went to bed, Marcus sat on his couch and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd learned. He'd been so proud of his progress, the balanced schedule, the better sleep, the time with Ava. But while he was learning to live again, his daughter was still drowning in grief she didn't know how to process. He'd been so focused on his own survival that he'd missed hers. The guilt threatened to swallow him whole. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. "Everything okay? You seemed stressed earlier." Marcus stared at the message. His first instinct was to say everything was fine, to handle it alone. Instead, he called her. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, what's going on?" Marcus told her about the school meeting, about Ava's withdrawal, about the conversation at the park. Elena listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "You're getting her help. That's what matters." "I should have noticed sooner." "Marcus, you've been rebuilding your entire life while raising a grieving 6-year-old alone. You can't see everything." "But I'm her father. I'm supposed to—" "You're human," Elena interrupted gently. "You're allowed to miss things. What matters is that you're addressing it now." Marcus leaned back against the couch. "How do you do it?" "With Sophia?" "Honestly, some days I have no idea. I just try to show up and hope I'm not screwing her up too badly." "That's reassuring." Elena laughed softly. "Welcome to single parenthood. We're all just doing our best and hoping it's enough." They talked for another 20 minutes. About their daughters, about grief, about the impossible task of being everything to a child who'd already lost too much. When they hung up, Marcus felt lighter. Not fixed. Nothing was fixed, but less alone. And maybe that was enough for tonight. The next morning, Marcus called 3 child therapists before finding one who specialized in grief counseling for children and had evening availability. Dr. Sarah Kim could see them starting next week. He also sent an email to Mrs. Chen updating her on the plan and asking her to let him know if Ava's withdrawal continued or worsened. Then he went to work and threw himself into the task force project. The employee listening sessions had revealed something Marcus had suspected, but now had data to confirm. Burnout wasn't just affecting struggling employees. Some of the company's highest performers were quietly falling apart, maintaining excellent output through sheer force of will while their personal lives collapsed. Marcus knew that story intimately. He and Elena presented their findings to the task force that Wednesday. "The pattern is clear," Elena said, advancing to the next slide. Employees who reported the highest job satisfaction also reported having clear boundaries between work and personal life. Those reporting the lowest satisfaction consistently mentioned overwork, lack of flexibility, and fear of being perceived as uncommitted if they used benefits like PTO or flex time. Marcus jumped in. "We're creating a culture where people feel they have to choose between career success and having a life, and that's not sustainable." One of the senior executives, a woman named Patricia, frowned. "But our productivity metrics are strong. If people are getting their work done, they're getting it done by sacrificing their health, their families, and their long-term sustainability." Marcus interrupted. "I know because I did it. And I was maybe 6 months away from completely burning out when someone intervened." The room went quiet. Patricia's expression softened. "What kind of intervention?" Marcus glanced at Elena, who gave him an encouraging nod. "My role was restructured," he said. "Reduced hours, same salary. Focus on strategic work instead of administrative overload. And my productivity didn't drop. It improved. Because I was actually rested enough to think clearly." "How many people in this company have similar arrangements?" another executive asked. "Currently, 6, Marcus said. but we're recommending it be expanded to anyone who needs it, with clear parameters around deliverables and accountability. The task force leader, a man named James, leaned forward. What you're describing is a fundamental shift in how we measure value, from hours logged to results delivered. Exactly, Elena confirmed. The data shows that people working reasonable hours with actual work-life balance are more creative, more engaged, and less likely to leave the company. It's better for everyone. The discussion continued for another hour. There was resistance. There always was when challenging established systems, but there was also genuine interest. As the meeting wrapped up, Patricia approached Marcus. "I want you to know," she said quietly, "what you said about burnout resonated with me. I've been running myself into the ground for 3 years trying to prove I deserved my promotion. Maybe it's time I stopped." Marcus met her eyes. "It's definitely time." She smiled. "I'm going to talk to Naomi about a flexible arrangement. Thank you for being honest about your experience." After she left, Elena bumped Marcus's shoulder. "Look at you, starting a revolution." "I'm just telling the truth. Sometimes that's all it takes." That evening, Marcus took Ava to her first session with Dr. Kim. The office was warm and colorful, filled with toys and art supplies and comfortable seating. Dr. Kim was a Korean woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a calm presence that immediately put Ava at ease. "Hi, Ava," she said, kneeling to Ava's level. "I'm Dr. Kim. You can call me Dr. Sarah if that's easier. Your dad told me you've been having some big feelings lately." Ava nodded shyly. "That makes sense. Feelings can be really big sometimes. Want to talk about it? Or we could draw or play with some toys while we talk. Whatever feels good to you." Ava chose to draw. Dr. Kim gave her paper and markers and asked gentle questions while Ava created a picture of a house with a garden. Marcus sat on the couch, watching his daughter slowly open up about missing her mother, about feeling different from the other kids, about being scared that Marcus might disappear too. It broke his heart and gave him hope at the same time. After 45 minutes, Dr. Kim asked to speak with Marcus privately while Ava played in the waiting room. "She's carrying a lot," Dr. Kim said gently, "but she's also remarkably resilient. With consistent support, I think she'll be okay. I'd like to see her weekly for now." "Whatever she needs," Marcus said immediately. "I also want to acknowledge that you're doing a good job, single parenting. A grieving child while managing your own grief is incredibly hard. The fact that you recognize she needed help and got her here shows real awareness." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I just want her to be okay." "She will be. It takes time, but she will be." Over the next month, Ava went to therapy every Thursday at 4:30. Marcus rearranged his schedule to make it work, leaving the office at 3:30 on Thursdays instead of 2:30 the other days. Slowly, he started seeing changes. Ava began talking more at dinner, started asking to have Sophia over for playdates, came home from school with stories about games she'd played at recess. She still had hard days when missing Simone hit her like a wave and she cried herself to sleep. But those days were becoming less frequent. And on the good days, she laughed, really laughed. The kind of full-body joy that reminded Marcus his daughter was still a child, still capable of happiness despite everything she'd lost. Meanwhile, Marcus's work with the task force was gaining traction. They presented their full recommendations to the executive board in November. Comprehensive policy changes around flexible work arrangements, mandatory PTO usage, limits on after-hours communication, and regular check-ins to assess employee well-being. Naomi championed it. So did Patricia and 2 other executives who'd quietly admitted they were burning out too. The board approved a pilot program starting in January. "This is going to change people's lives," Elena said after the approval meeting. She and Marcus were grabbing coffee to celebrate. "If it works," Marcus cautioned, "it'll work. You're living proof it works." Marcus smiled. "We're living proof. This was your project as much as mine." "Our project," Elena corrected. She raised her coffee cup. "To changing the culture." Marcus clinked his cup against hers. "To surviving and actually living." "I'll drink to that." They talked for over an hour, long past when they should have headed home. The conversation wandered from work to their daughters to their lives before everything fell apart. Marcus learned that Elena had been married young, divorced by 25 when her ex-husband chose addiction over their family. that she'd put herself through nursing school while raising Sophia alone, that she was stronger than she gave herself credit for. Elena learned that Marcus had met Simone in college, that they'd been together for 8 years before she died from an undiagnosed heart condition, that he still wore his wedding ring even though he'd started accepting she was gone. "Do you think you'll ever take it off?" Elena asked gently. Marcus looked down at the simple gold band. "I don't know. Part of me feels like taking it off means forgetting her." "I don't think that's true. I think it just means you're ready to move forward." "Are you? Ready to move forward?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "I think so. Sophia's been asking me why I don't date. Says all her friends' moms have boyfriends or girlfriends. I told her I was waiting for someone worth my time. And have you found anyone worth your time?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither was quite ready to name. Elena met his eyes. "I might have." Marcus's heart beat faster. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Before he could respond, Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. "That's my babysitter. I need to get home." "Right, of course." They stood, walked toward the parking lot together. At her car, Elena turned to face him. "Marcus, I need to say something." "Okay. These past few months, working with you, getting to know you, it's been really good. You're a good person, a good father, and I like spending time with you." "I like spending time with you too. But I need to be careful, for Sophia's sake. I can't bring someone into her life unless I'm sure, unless I know it's real and it's going somewhere." Marcus understood completely. "I feel the same way." "About Ava." Elena nodded. "So maybe we just keep doing what we're doing? See where it goes?" "I'd like that." She smiled. "Good, because Sophia's been asking when we can have another museum day." "Ava asks about Sophia constantly. We could do something this weekend?" "Perfect." Elena got in her car, but before she closed the door, she looked up at him. "Marcus, I'm really glad we met." "Me too, Elena. Me too." As he drove home, Marcus thought about what was building between them. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was careful and thoughtful and built on genuine friendship. It felt right. That weekend, they took the girls ice skating. Sophia was fearless, zooming around the rink while Ava clung to the wall, terrified of falling. "Come on, Ava," Sophia called. "It's fun." "I don't know how." Marcus skated over to his daughter. "Want me to help you?" Ava looked up at him with wide eyes. "You know how to skate?" "I used to. It's been a while, but I think I remember." He took her hands. Slowly, carefully, they moved away from the wall. Ava wobbled, squeaked, nearly fell twice, but Marcus held her steady. "You're doing it," he encouraged. "I'm doing it," Ava laughed. "Daddy, I'm skating." Across the rink, Elena watched them with Sophia beside her. "Your mom's looking at us," Marcus said quietly. "She thinks your dad is nice," Sophia announced loudly. Ava looked up at Marcus. "Do you think Miss Elena is nice?" Marcus glanced across the ice and found Elena watching him with a soft smile. "Yeah, baby. I think she's really nice." After skating, they got hot chocolate at a cafe nearby. The girls sat together, whispering and giggling about whatever 7- and 6-year-olds found hilarious. Marcus and Elena sat across from them. "They're good together," Elena observed. "They really are. Sophia told me last night that Ava's her best friend." Ava said the same thing. Elena took a sip of her hot chocolate. "Our daughters are best friends. We work together. We spend most of our free time together. Are we dating and just haven't admitted it yet?" Marcus nearly choked on his drink. What?" Elena laughed. "I'm half kidding, but also half serious. What is this? What are we doing?" Marcus set down his cup. "Honestly, I don't know what to call it, but I know I look forward to seeing you. I know I think about you when you're not around. And I know that whatever this is, I want it to keep happening." "Me too." Elena reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "So maybe we just acknowledge that we're figuring it out together. No pressure, no rush. Just honest." Marcus turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. "I can do honest." "Good. Because I like you, Marcus Hale. A lot." "I like you too, Elena Rivera." Across the table, Sophia and Ava had stopped giggling and were staring at their joined hands with matching expressions of delight. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Sophia demanded. Elena blushed. We're just friends, baby. Friends don't hold hands like that, Ava said matter-of-factly. Marcus and Elena looked at each other and burst out laughing. Okay, Elena admitted. Maybe we're a little more than friends. Are you going to get married? Sophia asked. Whoa! Slow down, Marcus said, still laughing. Let's just take it one day at a time. But as he looked at Elena, at the warmth in her eyes, the easy smile, the way she fit naturally into his life and Ava's, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in over a year. The possibility of a future that included more than just survival. The possibility of love. December arrived with early snow and the frenetic energy of the holidays. Marcus and Elena made their relationship official the week before Christmas. Nothing dramatic, just an honest conversation where they both admitted they wanted to try being together, really together, and see where it led. Ava was thrilled. Sophia was ecstatic. They immediately started planning how their rooms would be decorated when they became sisters. They're getting way ahead of themselves, Elena said one night, laughing at yet another detailed plan for their future shared house. Let them dream, Marcus said, pulling her closer on the couch. Ava and Sophia were having a sleepover at Elena's apartment, which gave him a rare evening alone with Elena. They've both been through enough. Let them have the fantasy. Elena rested her head on his shoulder. You're right. And who knows, maybe someday it won't be a fantasy. Marcus kissed the top of her head. Maybe. At work, the pilot program for flexible work arrangements was set to launch in 3 weeks. Marcus had been asked to help train managers on the new policies and serve as a resource for employees navigating the changes. It felt surreal. A year ago, he'd been drowning. Now he was helping create systems to prevent other people from drowning. Naomi called him into her office the week before Christmas. Close the door, she said when he entered. Marcus did, suddenly nervous. Had he done something wrong? Naomi gestured to the chair. Sit. I have a proposition for you. Okay? We're creating a new position, Director of Strategic Innovation. The role would involve exactly what you've been doing with the task force, identifying inefficiencies, developing innovative solutions, implementing cultural changes. You'd report directly to me and have a team of 3 analysts. Marcus stared at her. You're offering me a promotion? I'm offering you a role that matches what you're already exceptionally good at. The salary is 60% higher than your current position. The hours are still flexible. You'd design your own schedule as long as the work gets done. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. I need an answer by the new year. Marcus left her office in a daze. A promotion. A significant one. With more money, more responsibility, more impact. A year ago, he would have said yes immediately, then promptly drowned in the increased pressure. Now, he needed to actually think about it. That night, he talked to Elena. That's amazing, she said, genuinely excited for him. Are you going to take it? I don't know, it's more responsibility. What if I can't handle it? Marcus, you've been essentially doing this job for the last 2 months. You're already handling it. But what about Ava? What about us? Elena took his hands. The job has flexible hours. You design your own schedule. That means you can still be present for Ava, still make therapy appointments, still have time for this. She gestured between them. Unless you don't want the job? I want it. I'm just scared. Of what? Of falling back into old patterns, of proving I can't actually have both success and a life. Elena squeezed his hands. You're not the same person you were a year ago. You've learned how to set boundaries, how to ask for help, how to actually live. This isn't the same situation. Marcus knew she was right, but fear didn't always listen to logic. What would you do? He asked. I'd take the job, but I'd also set very clear boundaries from the start. Make sure Naomi knows your non-negotiables, Ava's therapy appointments, your evening hours, your relationship time. If she's offering you this role, she already knows you come as a package deal. Marcus thought about it for 3 days. Then he scheduled a meeting with Naomi. I'll take the position, he said, but I need to be clear about my boundaries. Naomi smiled. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Tell me what you need. Marcus laid it out. Thursday afternoons blocked for Ava's therapy. No work communications after 7 p.m. unless it's an emergency. At least one weekend day completely offline. The ability to work remotely when Ava's sick or when Sophia and Ava want to have playdates. Naomi listened to everything, then nodded. Done. Anything else? That's it. Good. You start January 2nd. Congratulations, Marcus. They shook hands, and as Marcus left her office, he realized something profound. He'd just negotiated for his life, not just his job. And that made all the difference. Christmas morning arrived with Ava jumping on Marcus's bed at 6:30, squealing about presents and snow and whether Santa had really eaten the cookies they'd left out. Marcus groaned, pulled her into a hug, and pretended to go back to sleep while she shrieked with laughter and poked his face until he opened his eyes. Okay, I'm up, he said, grinning. Let's go see what Santa brought. They padded into the living room together. The small tree they'd decorated 2 weeks ago glowed with lights, and beneath it sat a modest pile of gifts wrapped in paper Ava had helped choose. It wasn't extravagant. Marcus couldn't afford extravagant, but it was enough. More than that, it was joyful. Ava tore into her presents with the enthusiasm only a 6-year-old could manage, gasping over a new dinosaur book, a art supply set, and the stuffed triceratops she'd been wanting for months. This is the best Christmas ever, she declared, hugging the triceratops. Marcus thought about last Christmas, the first one without Simone. How he'd barely managed to put up a tree, how Ava had opened her gifts quietly, mechanically, neither of them able to acknowledge the gaping hole in their celebration. This year was different. Not perfect. Grief still showed up in unexpected moments, like when Ava mentioned that Mommy would have loved the triceratops, or when Marcus found himself automatically setting out 3 mugs for hot chocolate before remembering. But different, softer, less like drowning and more like learning to swim. At 10 o'clock, Elena and Sophia arrived with homemade cinnamon rolls and matching Christmas sweaters that Sophia insisted everyone had to wear. It's a tradition, Sophia announced, pulling an oversized reindeer sweater over her head. Since when? Elena asked, laughing. Since right now. They spent the morning in Marcus's small apartment, the 4 of them crowded together in a space that suddenly felt full in the best way. The girls played with their new toys while Marcus and Elena made breakfast, stealing kisses when the girls weren't looking and laughing when Sophia inevitably caught them and made exaggerated gagging noises. After breakfast, they all went to the park. Snow had fallen overnight, turning everything white and pristine. Ava and Sophia immediately started building a snowman while Marcus and Elena stood nearby, hands clasped, watching their daughters shriek with joy. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, Marcus admitted quietly. Elena glanced at him. What do you mean? This, all of this, it feels too good. Like I don't deserve to be this happy after everything that happened. Marcus. Elena turned to face him fully. You lost your wife. You nearly destroyed yourself trying to survive. You fought your way back to living. You deserve every bit of happiness you can find. Do I, though? Sometimes I feel guilty for moving on. Like loving you means I didn't love Simone enough. Elena's expression softened. That's not how love works. Your heart didn't replace Simone with me. It just made room for both, for grief and joy, for what was and what is. Marcus felt his throat tighten. How'd you get so wise? Years of therapy and a lot of mistakes. She squeezed his hand. You're allowed to be happy, Marcus. Simone would want that for you, for Ava. I know, I'm just learning how to believe it. Then keep learning. I'll be right here while you do. They stood together in the snow, watching their daughters create memories neither had thought possible a year ago. And for the first time since Simone died, Marcus let himself feel joy without immediately waiting for it to be taken away. The day after Christmas, Marcus's sister Vanessa arrived from Atlanta. He hadn't seen her in person in over a year, not since Simone's funeral. And when she walked through his apartment door, she immediately pulled him into a fierce hug. Look at you, she said, pulling back to study his face. You look alive again. Marcus laughed. That's a low bar. Well, last time I saw you, you looked like a ghost. Now you look like an actual human being. I'm calling that progress. Vanessa spent 3 days with them. She bonded instantly with Ava, took them all out for lunch, and insisted on cooking a proper dinner in Marcus's tiny kitchen, even though there was barely room for 1 person, let alone 2. On the second night, after Ava had gone to bed, Vanessa cornered Marcus on the couch. So, she said, settling in beside him with a glass of wine, tell me about Elena. Marcus felt his face heat. What about her? Don't play dumb. Ava hasn't stopped talking about Miss Elena since I got here. And you get this look on your face every time her name comes up. What look? Like you're happy. Genuinely happy. It's a good look on you. Marcus took a sip of his own wine. She's special. We're taking it slow, but yeah, she makes me happy. And Ava likes her? Loves her. Sophia too. Vanessa studied him for a moment. Are you scared? Terrified. Of what? Of messing it up. Of Ava getting attached and then losing another person she loves. Of not being ready for this, even though it feels right. Vanessa reached over and squeezed his hand. You know what I think? What? I think you're more ready than you realize. The Marcus I saw a year ago couldn't have handled a relationship. He could barely handle existing, but you've done the work. You've rebuilt your life. You've learned to take care of yourself and Ava. That's exactly the foundation you need. What if I fall back into old patterns? Then you course correct. That's what healthy people do. They mess up, they recognize it, they adjust. Vanessa smiled. You're not perfect, Marcus. You're never going to be, but you're trying, and that's more than enough. Later that night, Marcus lay in bed thinking about his sister's words, about the man he used to be and the man he was becoming. He wasn't the same person who'd answered the door that night to find Naomi standing in the hallway. That man had been drowning, desperate, convinced he had to carry everything alone. This man knew how to ask for help, how to set boundaries, how to live instead of just survive. And maybe Vanessa was right. Maybe that was exactly what he needed to be ready for love again. The new year arrived with its typical chaos of resolutions and fresh starts. Marcus began his new role as Director of Strategic Innovation on January 2nd. His first day included a meeting with his new team, 3 analysts, all sharp and eager and slightly intimidated by their new boss's reputation. I know my story, Marcus said during their first team meeting. I know people talk about the burnout, the intervention, the restructured schedule. And I want to be clear about something from the start. I'm not here to be a cautionary tale or an inspiration. I'm here to do good work and help this company treat people like humans instead of machines. One of the analysts, a young woman named Keisha, raised her hand tentatively. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. How do you balance it? The high-level responsibility with the flexible schedule? People are saying it's impossible. Marcus leaned back in his chair. It's not impossible, it's just different. I work smarter, not longer. I delegate instead of micromanaging. And I'm honest about my limitations. If I can't take on a project without sacrificing my health or my daughter, I say no. It's that simple. But doesn't that hurt your career? Another analyst asked. My career almost killed me, Marcus said bluntly. So, no, setting boundaries doesn't hurt my career, it saves my life. There's a difference. The room went quiet. Then Keisha smiled. I think I'm going to like working for you. The pilot program for flexible work arrangements launched the second week of January. 43 employees across 6 departments opted in, each with customized schedules based on their specific needs. Single parents, people with chronic health conditions, employees caring for aging relatives, young professionals who wanted actual work-life balance. All of them suddenly had options beyond just grinding themselves into dust. Marcus and Elena monitored the program closely, tracking productivity metrics, employee satisfaction scores, and retention rates. The results were remarkable. Productivity stayed stable or improved in 38 of the 43 cases. Employee satisfaction scores jumped by an average of 47%, and the company hadn't lost a single participant to burnout or resignation. This is working, Elena said one afternoon, reviewing the latest data in Marcus's office. Like really working. People just needed permission to be human, Marcus said, and support to make it sustainable. We should present this to the board, push for company-wide implementation. Marcus nodded slowly. Let's give it another month, make sure the results hold. Then we'll make the case. But word was already spreading. Other departments were asking about the program. Employees were approaching HR requesting similar arrangements, and executive leadership was paying attention. Naomi called Marcus into her office on a Friday afternoon in late January. The board wants you to present the pilot program results at the quarterly meeting in March, she said without preamble. Marcus felt his stomach flip. The full board? All 12 of them? Yes. This is high profile, Marcus. If we can prove the model works, we can transform how this entire company operates. But you need to sell it. Make them believe. No pressure, Naomi smiled slightly. You've been making presentations your entire career. You'll be fine. Those were operational reports. This is advocating for fundamental culture change to people who've been doing things the same way for 30 years. Which is exactly why you're the right person to do it. You lived the alternative. You can speak to both sides, the cost of the old way and the value of the new one. Marcus took a deep breath. Okay, I'll do it. Good. Elena will co-present with you. You'll have 4 weeks to prepare. 4 weeks suddenly felt like not nearly enough time. That evening, Marcus met Elena at their usual coffee shop to start planning the presentation. We need to lead with data, Elena said, pulling out her laptop. Hard numbers they can't argue with. And stories, Marcus added. Data tells them what happened. Stories tell them why it matters. They worked for 2 hours building an outline, identifying key metrics, crafting the narrative arc that would take skeptical board members from doubt to buy-in. As they packed up to leave, Elena reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. We're going to change things, she said softly. Really change them. I hope so. I know so. Because we're living proof it works. Outside, snow had started falling again. They walked to their cars together, hands still clasped, breath visible in the cold air. Come over for dinner tomorrow? Elena asked. Sophia's been asking when you and Ava can visit. We'd love to. Elena kissed him gently. See you tomorrow, then. As Marcus drove home, he thought about how much had changed in 14 months, from barely surviving to building something real, from isolation to connection, from grief to the possibility of joy. It still scared him sometimes, the vulnerability of letting someone in, the risk of losing another person he loved. But it also felt right, like maybe, finally, he was learning how to live. February arrived with bitter cold and the relentless pressure of preparing for the board presentation. Marcus and Elena worked on it constantly, refining slides, practicing their delivery, anticipating questions and objections. They ran through the presentation for Naomi 3 times, incorporating her feedback each time. You're too defensive about the reduced hours aspect, Naomi said after the 3rd run-through. Stop apologizing for it. Own it. The data shows it works. Present it as the competitive advantage it is. Marcus nodded, making notes. You're right. I keep falling into old patterns. Old patterns die hard, Naomi said. But you've got 3 weeks to kill them. Outside of work, life continued with its beautiful, messy normalcy. Ava's therapy sessions were showing real progress. She'd rejoined her class activities, made new friends, started talking about Simone in healthier ways, remembering the good times instead of just the loss. Marcus and Elena's relationship deepened quietly. They didn't rush toward big milestones or declarations. They just showed up for each other consistently, built trust through small moments, let their daughters guide the pace. One Saturday in mid-February, all 4 of them went to the Children's Science Museum. The girls ran ahead, excitedly pointing at exhibits while Marcus and Elena followed at a more leisurely pace. I've been thinking about something, Elena said as they watched Ava and Sophia experiment with a giant pendulum. Yeah, what's that? About us. About where this is going. Marcus's heart rate picked up. Okay. I'm not asking you to propose or move in together or anything dramatic, Elena continued quickly, but I think we should talk about what we both want, long term. Marcus considered his words carefully. I want this, you, me, our daughters. I want to keep building what we're building and see where it leads. I'm not in a rush, but I'm also not just casually dating. This is real for me. Elena smiled. It's real for me too. I just needed to make sure we're on the same page. We are. Good. She leaned into him slightly. Because Sophia asked me this morning if you were going to be her dad someday. Marcus's breath caught. What did you tell her? I told her that you and I were seeing where our relationship goes, and that whatever happens, you'll always be important to both of us. That's a good answer. She then asked if that meant you might be her dad eventually. I said maybe. Was that okay? Marcus looked at the 2 girls, now building something elaborate with magnetic tiles, their heads bent together in concentration. Yeah, he said softly. That was more than okay. The week before the board presentation, Marcus barely slept. He and Elena practiced their delivery until they could do it in their sleep. They prepared for every possible question, every potential objection. They made backup slides for alternative scenarios. On the night before the presentation, Elena came over after the girls were in bed. "You're going to pace a hole in your floor," she observed, watching Marcus walk back and forth across his living room. "I can't stop thinking about everything that could go wrong." "Like what?" "Like them rejecting the whole program. Like all those people who finally have balanced lives going back to drowning. Like proving that this was all just a nice experiment that doesn't work in the real world." Elena stood and caught his arm, stopping his pacing. "Marcus, look at me." He did. "We have data," she said firmly. "We have testimonials. We have you, living proof that this works. And we have each other. We're prepared. We're ready. And tomorrow, we're going to walk into that boardroom and change the game." "You sound confident." "I am confident, because I believe in this. And I believe in you." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding tight. "What would I do without you?" "Lucky for you, you don't have to find out." They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. "Stay tonight?" Marcus asked quietly. Elena pulled back to look at him. "Are you sure? The girls are both heavy sleepers, and I just want you here. I sleep better when you're here." Elena smiled. "Okay, but I'm leaving early to go home and change before work." "Deal." That night, Marcus fell asleep with Elena beside him, her breathing steady and calm, her presence grounding him in a way nothing else could. And when morning came, he woke up ready. The boardroom was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs, and the kind of corporate gravitas designed to make people feel small. 12 executives sat around the massive table, including the CEO, the CFO, and 10 board members who'd been with the company for decades. Marcus and Elena stood at the front with their presentation queued up. Naomi sat at the far end of the table, her expression neutral but her eyes encouraging. "Whenever you're ready," the CEO said. Marcus took a breath and began. 14 months ago, I was dying." The room went silent. "Not literally," Marcus continued, "but close enough. I was working 60-hour weeks while raising my daughter alone after my wife died. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was running on pure adrenaline and terror, convinced that if I slowed down for even a second, everything would collapse." He advanced to the next slide, a graph showing his performance metrics from that period. Erratic, declining, unsustainable. Then someone intervened. My role was restructured, 25 hours instead of 60, flexible schedule, same salary. And you know what happened? Next slide. New performance metrics, stable, improved, excellent. My productivity improved. My strategic thinking sharpened. My value to this company increased, not despite the reduced hours, because of them. He gestured to Elena. "Ms. Rivera and I are here today to present data from our pilot program implementing similar arrangements for 43 employees across 6 departments. The results speak for themselves." Elena took over, walking them through the metrics. Productivity stable or improved. Satisfaction scores up 47%. Zero attrition. Reduced healthcare costs. Improved creativity and innovation. Then they showed testimonials. Real employees talking about how the program had changed their lives. A single mother who could finally attend her son's school events. An employee with chronic illness who could manage his health without sacrificing his career. A young analyst who'd been on the verge of quitting who was now thriving. "The traditional model is broken," Marcus said, returning to the presentation. "It treats people like machines. It measures value by hours logged instead of results delivered. And it's killing your workforce." He let that sink in. "We're proposing a company-wide implementation of flexible work arrangements, available to any employee who can demonstrate clear deliverables and accountability. It's not about working less, it's about working smarter. It's about treating your people like humans and trusting them to deliver value on their own terms." The questions came fast and hard. "What about employees who abuse the system?" "The same accountability measures we use now," Elena answered. "If someone's not delivering results, that's addressed regardless of their schedule." "What's the cost?" "Minimal," Marcus said. We're not changing salaries, just allowing flexibility in how and when work gets done. The return on investment is reduced turnover, improved productivity, and better talent retention. What about client-facing roles with fixed hours? Those maintain standard schedules, Elena explained, but even there, we can offer compressed work weeks or other creative solutions. The debate went on for 45 minutes. Finally, the CEO raised his hand for silence. I appreciate the thoroughness of this presentation, he said, and the data is compelling, but I want to hear from Mr. Hale directly. You're the face of this program. Are you prepared to stake your reputation on it? Marcus met his eyes. Absolutely. Because I'm not just staking my reputation, I'm staking my life. This approach saved me, and it can save countless others in this company who are quietly drowning while maintaining the illusion of success. The CEO nodded slowly. We'll take a vote. All in favor of company-wide implementation with a 6-month evaluation period? Hands went up around the table. 8 votes in favor, 2 against, 2 abstentions. Motion passes, the CEO said. Implementation begins April 1st. Mr. Hale, Ms. Rivera, you'll oversee the rollout. Congratulations. Marcus and Elena left the boardroom in a daze. In the hallway, Elena grabbed his hand. We did it! We really did. You were incredible in there. The way you answered those questions. We were incredible, Marcus corrected. This was both of us. Naomi appeared in the hallway, a rare smile on her face. Well done, both of you. Thank you, Marcus said, for everything, for believing this could work. I didn't believe it could work, Naomi said. I knew it would, because you were living proof. As she walked away, Elena turned to Marcus. April 1st, 6 weeks to prepare for full rollout. 6 weeks to change everything, Elena grinned. No pressure. Marcus laughed, pulled her into a hug right there in the corporate hallway, and let himself feel the full weight of what they'd accomplished. They'd done more than save a program. They'd proven that there was another way to work, to live, to exist in the world. And that maybe, just maybe, success and humanity weren't mutually exclusive after all. The 6 weeks between the board approval and the April 1st rollout became the most intense period of Marcus's professional life since his burnout. But this time, the intensity came with balance. He and Elena led the implementation team, training managers, developing guidelines, creating support systems for employees transitioning to flexible arrangements. They worked long days, but not endless ones. They collaborated intensely, but not desperately. And every evening, Marcus still left to pick up Ava from school, still made dinner, still read bedtime stories, still showed up for therapy appointments, because the work mattered, but it wasn't everything. One Thursday afternoon in late March, Marcus was in his office reviewing training materials when Derek knocked on his door frame. Got a minute? Derek asked. Sure. Come in. Derek sat down looking nervous. I wanted to thank you for what you're doing with this program. Marcus set down his pen. You're signing up? Yeah, my wife and I just had twins, boys, and I've been trying to do the same thing you were doing, work full-time, be present at home, not ask for help because I didn't want to look weak. But man, I'm drowning. Marcus recognized that exhaustion in Derek's eyes, the same desperation he'd carried for 8 months. The flexible arrangement will help, Marcus said. But Derek, you also need to actually use it. Don't just sign up and then work your regular hours anyway because you feel guilty. How do you stop feeling guilty? Honestly, you don't completely, but you learn to recognize that the guilt is lying to you. It tells you that working less means you're failing, but the truth is, working smart and taking care of yourself means you're succeeding at the things that actually matter. Derek nodded slowly. My kids won't be babies forever. I don't want to miss it. Then don't. Sign up. Use the time. Be present. Your career will survive, but you can't get this time back. After Derek left, Marcus sat quietly for a moment, thinking about how far he'd come. From barely surviving to helping others learn to live. It felt like purpose. That evening, Marcus picked up Ava from school and found her bouncing with excitement. Daddy, guess what? What, baby? My picture won the art contest. Mrs. Chen said it's going to be in the school display for the whole year. Marcus's heart swelled. That's amazing. Which picture? The one I drew of our family. She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her backpack. Marcus unfolded it carefully. The drawing showed 4 figures holding hands under a bright sun. He recognized himself and Ava immediately, and beside them, Elena and Sophia. "This is beautiful," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "That's you, and that's me, and that's Miss Elena and Sophia." "Because we're a family now, right?" Marcus knelt down to Ava's level. "Is that what you want? For us to be a family?" Ava nodded seriously. "Sophia and me talked about it. We want you and Miss Elena to get married so we can be sisters for real." Marcus smiled, blinking back tears. "That's a pretty big decision." "Do you love her?" The question was so direct, so innocent, so devastatingly important. "Yeah, baby, I do." "Does she love you?" "I think so." "Then you should get married. That's what people do when they love each other." Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug. "It's a little more complicated than that, but I promise we'll figure it out together, okay?" "Okay. But Daddy?" "Yeah? I really hope you figure it out soon, because I really want Sophia to be my sister." That night, after Ava was asleep, Marcus called Elena. "Hey," she answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I just need to talk to you about something." "Okay, now I'm nervous." Marcus laughed softly. "Don't be. It's good, I think. Can you come over this weekend, Saturday afternoon? Just you and me, no kids?" There was a pause. Then Elena said, "Marcus, you're kind of freaking me out." "I promise it's good. I just want to have an actual conversation without being interrupted by dinosaur facts and demands for juice boxes." Elena laughed. "Okay, Saturday, 2 o'clock? Perfect." After they hung up, Marcus sat on his couch and looked at Ava's drawing, still sitting on the coffee table. 4 people. A family. It was exactly what he wanted too. Saturday afternoon arrived with perfect spring weather, sunny, warm, the first real hint that winter was finally ending. Marcus had arranged for Vanessa to take Ava to the zoo for the afternoon, which Ava was thrilled about. Elena had Sophia with her mother, which left them alone in Marcus's apartment with nothing but honesty and hope. Elena arrived at 2 o'clock exactly, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, looking nervous and beautiful. "Okay," she said, walking inside. "You've had me anxious for 2 days. What's going on?" Marcus took her hands. "Sit with me?" They sat on the couch together. Marcus took a breath. "Ava drew a picture this week. It won her school's art contest. Want to see it?" He showed her the drawing. Elena studied it, her expression softening. "She drew us as a family." "Yeah. And when I asked her if that's what she wanted, she said yes. She and Sophia have apparently been planning our wedding." Elena laughed, but her eyes were bright with tears. "Sophia's been doing the same thing. She asked me last week when we were all going to live in the same house." "What did you tell her?" "That I didn't know. That you and I were still figuring things out." Elena looked up at him. "Are we? Figuring things out?" Marcus squeezed her hands. "I think I've figured it out. I'm in love with you, Elena. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I know we haven't been together that long, and I know we both have daughters to think about. And I know this is complicated, but I also know that when I think about my future, you're in it. You and Sophia. Not someday. Now." Elena's breath caught. "Marcus, I'm not proposing," he said quickly. "Not yet, because I want to do this right. I want us to take the time we need to make sure our daughters are ready, to build this foundation solid. But I needed you to know where I stand, where my heart is." Elena was crying now, but smiling through the tears. "I'm in love with you too. I have been for months. I kept waiting for the fear to outweigh the feeling, but it never did. You make me happy, Marcus. You make Sophia happy, and I want this future you're talking about." Marcus pulled her close, kissing her softly. "So we're doing this? Really doing this?" "Yeah, we're really doing this." They sat together on the couch, holding each other, letting the weight and wonder of what they were building settle around them. "Our daughters are going to lose their minds when we tell them," Elena said, laughing. "They're probably going to have the whole wedding planned by dinner." "God help us." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "We've survived worse. I think we can handle 2 overexcited 7- and 6-year-olds planning our hypothetical wedding." "Hypothetical?" Marcus pulled back to look at her. "For now, but not for long." The promise hung in the air between them, solid and real and absolutely terrifying in the best possible way. April 1st arrived with the official company-wide rollout of the flexible work program. 217 employees signed up in the first week alone. Marcus and Elena's team worked around the clock those first few days, troubleshooting issues, supporting managers through the transition, addressing concerns as they arose. It was chaotic, messy, imperfect. It was also transformative. Stories started emerging almost immediately. A father who got to coach his daughter's soccer team for the first time in 3 years. A woman managing chronic pain who could finally work from home on bad days without sacrificing her career. A young professional who started taking night classes to finish his degree. People were breathing again, living again. 2 weeks into the rollout, Marcus got an email from Patricia, the executive who'd approached him after the task force meeting months ago. Marcus, I wanted you to know that I'm using the flexible arrangement, and it's changed my life. I've been able to reconnect with my teenage daughter, start exercising again, and actually sleep. My work hasn't suffered. If anything, I'm sharper than I've been in years. Thank you for having the courage to share your story. You gave me permission to save my own life. Marcus read the email 3 times, feeling emotion well up in his chest. He forwarded it to Elena with a simple message. This is why we did it. She responded immediately. Every single person we help makes it worth it. That evening, Marcus came home to find Ava and Sophia in his living room with Elena, surrounded by construction paper, markers, and what appeared to be wedding planning materials. What's all this? He asked, trying not to laugh. We're planning, Sophia announced. Miss Elena said you and her are going to get married eventually, so we're getting ready. Marcus caught Elena's eye. She shrugged, smiling. They asked if we were serious about each other. I said yes. This was their immediate response. Ava held up a drawing of what appeared to be a wedding cake. I'm going to be the flower girl, and Sophia's going to be the other flower girl, and we're going to wear matching dresses and throw flowers, and it's going to be beautiful. It sounds beautiful, Marcus agreed, sitting down on the floor beside them. But you know we're not getting married tomorrow, right? We know, Sophia said seriously. Miss Elena said you need to do something called engaged first. That's right. When are you going to do that? Marcus looked at Elena, who was watching him with soft, knowing eyes. When the time is right, he said. Which might be sooner than you think. Both girls squealed with delight. That night, after the girls had finally been convinced to go to bed, Marcus and Elena sat together on his couch, exhausted and happy. You know they're going to ask about this every single day now, Elena said. I know, but they're not wrong. We should get engaged. Elena turned to look at him. Are you serious? Completely. I want to marry you, Elena. I want to build a life with you and our daughters. I want to wake up next to you every morning and figure out this beautiful mess together. But we've only been together for 5 months. I know. And if you want to wait longer, we'll wait. But I also know what I want. And I'm tired of being afraid to reach for it. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I want it too. All of it. You, our girls, the whole beautiful mess. So we're really doing this? Yeah, we're really doing this. Marcus kissed her deeply, pulling her close, feeling the future settle around them like a promise. I'm going to propose properly, he said when they finally pulled apart, with a ring and a plan and something worthy of you. You're worthy of me exactly as you are. Still, let me do this right. Elena smiled. Okay, but Marcus, don't make me wait too long. I won't, I promise. 2 weeks later, Marcus had a plan. He recruited Sophia's help, which immediately made her the most excited co-conspirator in history. Together, they planned an elaborate setup for the proposal. The setting, the park where Marcus and Ava had their breakthrough conversation after Simone's death. The same park where he'd pushed Ava on the swings while learning to be present. The place that represented his journey from survival to living. The plan? A family picnic. Nothing fancy, nothing that would make Elena suspicious. Just the 4 of them spending a Saturday afternoon together like they'd done dozens of times before. The ring. A simple sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, blue like Elena's favorite color, understated but beautiful, just like her. Saturday arrived perfect and clear. They spread blankets under a huge oak tree while Ava and Sophia ran around playing tag. Marcus had packed sandwiches, fruit, cookies Elena had baked the night before. It looked like any other family afternoon, but Marcus's heart was racing. After they'd eaten and the girls had burned off some energy, Marcus suggested they all go for a walk. There was a small pond on the other side of the park with ducks that the girls loved to watch. As they walked, Sophia kept giggling and looking at Marcus with barely contained excitement. Elena noticed but didn't say anything, just smiled at her daughter's joy. When they reached the pond, Marcus squeezed Sophia's hand, their signal. "Miss Elena," Sophia shouted, "Ava and me need to show you something." Before Elena could respond, both girls grabbed her hands and pulled her toward a specific spot by the water's edge. And there, spelled out in carefully arranged stones, were the words, "Will you marry my daddy?" Elena's hands flew to her mouth. She turned to find Marcus on one knee behind her, ring box open. Ava and Sophia stood on either side of him, practically vibrating with excitement. "Elena Rivera," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "A year and a half ago, I was barely surviving. I thought my life was about managing disaster, about carrying everything alone, about never asking for help. And then you walked into my life and showed me what partnership looks like, what love looks like, what family can be." Elena was crying now, both hands still covering her mouth. Marcus continued, "You make me laugh, you challenge me, you see me completely, the broken parts and the healing parts, and the parts still figuring things out. And you love me anyway. You've given Ava someone who understands what she's been through. You've shown me that my heart didn't die with Simone, it just needed time to be ready to love again." He glanced at the two girls beside him, then back at Elena. Sophia and Ava already consider themselves sisters. They've been planning our wedding for weeks, and I can't imagine a future that doesn't include all of us together. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you build this beautiful, messy, wonderful life with us? Elena was nodding before he even finished. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." Marcus stood, slipping the ring onto her finger while Ava and Sophia shrieked with joy and jumped up and down. Then Elena threw her arms around him, kissing him while their daughters cheered. When they finally pulled apart, both girls immediately demanded to see the ring. "It's perfect," Ava declared. "When's the wedding?" Sophia asked. Elena laughed through her tears. "We literally just got engaged 30 seconds ago." "But you've been planning it for weeks," Sophia protested. Marcus pulled all three of them into a group hug, his daughter, his fiancée, his future stepdaughter, and felt something slot into place in his chest. This was family. Real, complicated, beautiful family. Not a replacement for what he'd lost. Not a consolation prize. But something new and precious and absolutely worth the risk of loving again. The news spread quickly. At work Monday morning, Marcus found his desk decorated with congratulations cards and a massive bouquet from Naomi with a note that simply said, "About time." Derek stopped by to shake his hand. "Man, I'm happy for you. You deserve this. Thank you. Also, I wanted you to know the flexible schedule. It's saving my life. I got to give my sons their bath last night for the first time in weeks. My wife actually smiled at me. So thank you for that too." After Derek left, Patricia appeared at his door. "I heard the news. Congratulations." "Thank you." She sat down in his visitor chair. "I wanted to tell you something. Because of this program you created, I've been able to reconnect with my daughter. We had lunch together yesterday, actually sat down and talked for 2 hours. Do you know how long it's been since that happened?" Marcus shook his head. 3 years. 3 years since I've had a real conversation with my own child, because I was too busy, too stressed, too convinced that working myself to death was what success looked like. Her voice caught. "You didn't just change company policy, Marcus. You gave me my daughter back." After she left, Marcus sat at his desk and let himself feel the full weight of what they'd accomplished. The program wasn't just about flexible schedules or reduced hours. It was about giving people permission to be human, to have lives, to prioritize what actually mattered, and every person who benefited was proof that there was another way. The wedding planning became a family affair. Ava and Sophia were involved in every decision, from the venue to the flowers to the cake flavors. They took their roles as flower girls very seriously, practicing their walk down the aisle in Marcus's living room at least once a week. Marcus and Elena decided on an October wedding, 6 months away. Enough time to plan, but not so long that their daughters would explode from anticipation. One evening in late May, Marcus's sister Vanessa called. I heard through the grapevine that you're getting married and didn't immediately call to tell me, she said, mock offended. Marcus laughed. I was going to call you this week, I swear. Uh-huh. Tell me about her, everything. Marcus spent an hour on the phone with his sister, telling her about Elena, her strength, her compassion, how she understood his grief because she'd walked through her own, how their daughters were inseparable, how it felt both terrifying and absolutely right. I'm so proud of you, Vanessa said when he finished. The Marcus I saw at Simone's funeral. I didn't know if he'd ever come back. But you did more than come back. You became someone even stronger. I had help. You accepted help, that's the difference. And now you're building something beautiful. After they hung up, Marcus walked into Ava's room where she was already asleep, her triceratops clutched in her arms. He thought about the night Naomi had shown up at his door, how he'd thought his world was ending, how terrified he'd been of losing everything. He'd had no idea that night was actually a beginning. Summer arrived with long days and the gentle rhythm of a life finally in balance. Marcus thrived in his role as Director of Strategic Innovation. The flexible work program continued expanding, with over 400 employees now participating. The company's retention rate improved dramatically. Productivity metrics were the strongest they'd been in 5 years. Other companies started reaching out, asking Marcus to consult on their own workplace culture initiatives. He began taking select projects, speaking engagements, workshops, advisory roles, all carefully managed within his flexible schedule. You're becoming famous, Elena teased one evening after Marcus finished a virtual presentation to a company in California. I'm becoming useful, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. You were always useful. Now you're just helping more people realize they don't have to destroy themselves to be valuable. Marcus pulled her close. We're helping people realize that. This is still your work, too. Our work, Elena agreed. The wedding approached with gathering momentum. Invitations went out in August. The guest list was small. Close friends, family, colleagues who'd become genuine friends. Naomi was invited, of course, Derek and his wife, Patricia and several other executives who'd championed the flexible work program. Marcus invited his old cubicle neighbors, the people who'd watched him nearly destroy himself and had tried, in their own limited ways, to help. Elena invited her nursing school friends, her mother, her sister who was flying in from Texas. And front and center would be Ava and Sophia, flower girls and future sisters, already planning their matching bedrooms for when everyone finally moved in together. The week before the wedding, Marcus took Ava to visit Simone's grave for the first time in months. They sat on the grass together in the late September sunshine, quiet for a long moment. Do you think Mommy would be happy about Miss Elena? Ava asked softly. Marcus's throat tightened. Yeah, baby, I think she would. Why? Because Mommy loved us, and she'd want us to be happy, to have people in our lives who take care of us. She'd want you to have someone like Elena who makes you feel safe and loved. Ava was quiet, thinking. Then she said, I still miss her. I know, I miss her too. But I'm also happy about our new family. You can be both, Marcus said gently. You can miss Mommy and be excited about Elena and Sophia. Those feelings can exist together. Ava nodded, leaning against his side. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby. So much. Before they left, Ava placed a small drawing she'd made on Simone's headstone. A picture of their new family, with an angel watching over them. Marcus's vision blurred with tears, but they were good tears. Healing tears. The kind that came from honoring the past while embracing the future. October 5th arrived bright and beautiful, the kind of perfect autumn day that felt designed for new beginnings. The ceremony was held in a small garden venue, intimate and lovely. White chairs arranged in neat rows, an arbor covered in flowers, the golden afternoon light filtering through the trees. Marcus stood at the altar with his best man Derek beside him, watching guests arrive. His sister Vanessa was already crying, and the ceremony hadn't even started. Naomi sat in the third row, her usually stoic expression soft with genuine happiness. Then the music changed. First came Sophia, carefully scattering rose petals with intense concentration. Then Ava, doing the same but sneaking glances at Marcus every few steps to make sure she was doing it right. Both girls wore matching dresses they'd picked out themselves, deep purple with white sashes. They looked so grown up and so very young at the same time. When they reached the front, they sat in the front row, holding hands and grinning at each other. And then Elena appeared. She wore a simple ivory dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, carrying a bouquet of blue hydrangeas. She was absolutely radiant. Her mother walked beside her down the aisle, but Elena's eyes were locked on Marcus. When she reached him, she whispered, "Hi." "Hi," Marcus whispered back, his voice thick with emotion. "You're beautiful." "You're not so bad yourself." The ceremony was short and perfect. They'd written their own vows, kept them simple and true. Marcus spoke first, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. "Elena, you taught me that surviving isn't the same as living. You showed me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You gave my daughter a role model who understands her grief and her joy. You gave me a future I thought I'd lost forever. I promised to show up for you, to partner with you, to build this life together with honesty and courage and love." Elena's vows were equally simple. "Marcus, you taught me that it's possible to be strong and vulnerable at the same time. You showed me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. You gave Sophia a father figure who treats her like she's precious. You gave me hope that our broken pieces could create something whole. I promise to stand beside you, to love you through the hard days and the good ones, to build this family together." When the officiant pronounced them married, the kiss was tender and real, witnessed by two daughters who cheered louder than anyone else. The reception was held in the same garden, tables set up under string lights as the sun set. There were speeches, Derek talking about watching Marcus transform from a ghost to a living person, Vanessa embarrassing Marcus with childhood stories, Naomi giving a surprisingly emotional toast about the courage it takes to save yourself, and then Marcus and Elena's first dance, swaying together under the lights while their daughters watched with matching expressions of absolute delight. Later, as the party wound down and guests began leaving, Marcus found himself standing with Elena at the edge of the garden, watching Ava and Sophia chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. "We did it," Elena said softly, leaning into him. "We really did. Are you happy?" Marcus thought about the question, about the journey that had brought him here, the loss, the breakdown, the intervention, the slow rebuild, the discovery that life could hold both grief and joy, both memory and hope. "Yeah," he said, pulling his wife closer. "I'm happy. Really, truly happy." "Good. Because I am too." They stood together in the twilight, watching their daughters play, feeling the weight and wonder of the life they'd built together. It wasn't the life Marcus had planned when he married Simone. It wasn't the future he'd imagined before everything fell apart. But it was real, and it was beautiful, and it was theirs. 6 months later, in the spring, Marcus stood in front of another audience, this time at a national conference on workplace culture and employee well-being. The ballroom was packed with executives, HR professionals, organizational psychologists, people who wanted to understand how to create better workplaces, how to prevent burnout, how to treat employees like humans instead of resources. Marcus had been invited as the keynote speaker. He stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces, and began, "2 years ago, I was dying. Not literally, but close enough. I was a widowed single father working 60 hours a week, convinced that if I slowed down for even a second, everything would collapse. I wasn't living. I was surviving, and I was doing a terrible job at both." He clicked to the next slide, a photo of himself from that period. The hollow eyes, the exhausted slump of his shoulders, the visible weight of someone carrying far too much alone. Then someone intervened. My CEO showed up at my door at midnight and told me I was fired. Except I wasn't really fired. My role was restructured. Reduced hours, flexible schedule, same salary, and my life changed completely. Next slide. A photo from his wedding day. Him and Elena, Ava, and Sophia, all of them laughing, all of them whole. This is me now. Remarried to an incredible woman, raising 2 daughters together, leading a team that's transformed how my entire company approaches work-life balance. And I'm here to tell you that this transformation is possible for your organizations too. He spent the next 45 minutes walking them through the data, the strategies, the real stories of employees whose lives had been changed by flexible work arrangements. He shared the metrics that proved productivity didn't suffer when people were treated like humans. He challenged their assumptions about what success looked like. And at the end, during the Q&A, a woman in the back raised her hand. "Mr. Hale, I'm the CEO of a mid-sized tech company. I've been running myself into the ground for 5 years, convinced that's what leadership requires. How do I stop? How do I model something different for my employees when I don't know how to do it myself?" Marcus smiled, recognizing himself in her question. "You start by admitting you're drowning," he said gently. "You acknowledge that the current system isn't sustainable. And then you do the scariest thing possible. You ask for help. You restructure your own role first. You prove to yourself and your employees that there's another way. It won't be easy, but I promise you it's worth it." The woman nodded, tears visible on her face even from the podium. After the conference ended, dozens of people approached Marcus with similar stories. Executives burning out, managers watching their teams suffer, employees desperate for change but afraid to speak up. He gave them his contact information, offered to help however he could, because this wasn't just his story anymore. It was a movement. That evening, Marcus video called Elena and the girls from his hotel room. "How'd it go?" Elena asked. Sophia and Ava crowded into frame beside her. "Really well. I think we helped some people today." "That's what you do best," Elena said, smiling. "When are you coming home?" Ava asked. "We miss you." "Tomorrow afternoon, and then I'm all yours for the rest of the weekend." "We're making cookies," Sophia announced. "The dinosaur-shaped ones you like." Marcus's heart swelled. "That sounds perfect." After they said goodnight and he hung up, Marcus sat in his hotel room thinking about how far he'd come. From the man who'd opened his door to find Naomi standing there with two devastating words. To this, a husband, a father to two girls, a leader helping reshape how companies treat their people, a voice for those still drowning in the system he'd escaped. The journey hadn't been linear. There had been setbacks and hard days and moments when he'd questioned everything. But he'd kept showing up, kept choosing to live instead of just survive, kept accepting help and offering it to others. And somehow, impossibly, he'd built a life worth living. The following December, nearly 2 years after Naomi's midnight intervention, Marcus stood in his living room watching Elena and the girls decorate their Christmas tree. They'd moved into a new house in October, bigger, with a yard, bedrooms for both girls, and space for everyone to breathe. The walls were covered with photos of their blended family, artwork from the girls, evidence of a life fully lived. Sophia and Ava were arguing good-naturedly about ornament placement, while Elena mediated with patient amusement. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. "Board meeting this afternoon. They want to expand the flexible work program to our international offices. Your impact keeps growing." "Well done." Marcus smiled and typed back. "Couldn't have done it without you showing up at my door that night." Her response came quickly. "You did the hard work. I just gave you permission to save yourself." As he put his phone away, Ava called out, "Daddy, come help us. We need someone tall." Marcus walked over, lifted Ava onto his shoulders so she could place the star on top of the tree. Sophia directed from below, making sure it was perfectly centered. "Perfect," Elena declared when they finished. She turned on the lights and the tree glowed to life. The four of them stood together, admiring their work. "Best tree ever," Sophia declared. "I think we say that every year," Elena pointed out, laughing, "because it's true every year." Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Marcus and Elena sat on the couch in the gentle glow of the Christmas lights. "Do you ever think about that night?" Elena asked quietly. "When Naomi showed up?" "All the time." "What do you think about?" Marcus considered the question. "I think about how terrified I was, how certain I was that losing my job meant losing everything, how I had no idea that night was actually saving my life." "Do you ever regret it? The old job, the intensity, the way things were before?" "Not even a little bit," Marcus said immediately. "That life was killing me. This one," he gestured around them, at the tree, the photos on the walls, the evidence of their blended family. "This one is actually worth living." Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm so glad you found your way here. To us." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, simply being together. Then Marcus said, "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "I get to keep choosing this. Every single day I get to wake up and choose to live instead of just survive. Choose to be present instead of just existing. Choose love instead of fear. And every day it gets a little easier. Elena lifted her head to look at him. You've come so far. We've come so far, Marcus corrected. I couldn't have done any of this alone. That's the whole point, though, isn't it? None of us are supposed to do it alone. Marcus kissed her softly. No, we're not. As they sat together under the glow of the Christmas lights, Marcus thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago, desperate, exhausted, convinced he had to carry everything alone. That man was gone. In his place was someone who understood that strength wasn't about never asking for help. It was about being brave enough to accept it when offered, about building systems that supported not just himself but everyone around him, about creating a life where work and family and love and grief could all coexist. The night Naomi had appeared at his door and told him he was fired, Marcus had thought his world was ending. He'd been wrong. That night, his world had finally begun, and every day since had been a choice to keep living it fully, honestly, courageously, with people who loved him, with daughters who needed him, with work that mattered and boundaries that protected him, with Elena beside him, building this beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect life. It wasn't the future he'd planned, but it was the one he'd fought for. And it was more than enough. It was everything.